Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast.
We are going to be talking to you about the business and the mindset of dentistry.
We're back.
We're back, part two.
Part two.
Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast. I am Dr. Davina Detrik.
And I'm Dr. Galen Detrik.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Part two.
Yeah, part two.
All right. So in part one.
This one's going to be a fun one. But yeah, part one. What do we talk about?
Well, this one it could be fun, but it could be scary. This is the one that is the one where I'm like.
This one's got some heat to it.
Yeah,
probably.
This is the question. I'm like, dang, gang, made the whole wrong choice. How do we make it the right one?
How do we make it the right one?
Yeah.
That's why I think this is going to be a good one because in some ways, we've talked around this, but you and I have never really talked to each other about really what we're going to do on this front. And so it's a very interesting question to be asked.
Welcome to marriage counseling.
Marriage counseling in real time. Don't worry, guys. We're using you.
You're the therapist. If you on the other end, you're the therapist in our counseling session.
Yeah, if you have any thoughts, just leave them in the comments. Yeah. Help us out. In part one, we talked about the first question, the first most influential question. So for those just tuning in, these are the four most influential questions that we think you could really ever ask in your entire life. And you should ask them continually. The first question was, who you're going to spend your life with? And we went a lot of places there. This time, the question is, where are you going to live? Where do you choose to live? This is another one that you've all chosen.
Right. We all live somewhere.
We all live somewhere. And unless you're getting ready to make a big move, a big transition, which we know a couple of people that are, a couple of dentists actually, you're pretty set. And especially as a dentist, when you set up shop somewhere, you kind of feel like that's where you're going to be for like life.
Right. You can't untangle that with any sort of ease.
Not with ease. Nope. 100%. So this is a powerful question. And for those that are listening to this that are not dentists, there's plenty of things to be said about where you live because of school or because of your spouse and your partner. Again, kind of hearkening back to question number one. Family plays a huge part of that, right? But why should we make this decision? Like if you could zoom out and you could look at this question very neutrally and say, what would the factors be that I would be choosing from to determine where I'm going to live? What would those be?
So I would say, what is the lifestyle that you want to have? And does that place provide access to it? Right? If you're a foodie and live out in the middle of nowhere, rural area, obviously access is going to be difficult, right? Quality of air, quality of water. Depending on what part you are in California, are you walking through feces to get somewhere, right?
just some hypodermic needles.
Right, yeah. So
or being in a place where organic, grass-fed, raw, whole foods, not in the vernacular.
Right.
There are plenty of places that's not how people eat.
Right, exactly. Schools, right? If you have children.
Crime.
Yep.
Yep. Politics.
Politics. The type of people that area attracts, right? If you're talking about San Francisco and you're in Silicon Valley, you're probably going to be attracting a very different type of person than if you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Right. Which is where we are.
That's where we are, right?
Yeah.
So all of those factors, I think, are things that I would never have thought about when choosing a place to live. My main concern and focus was family. And so then you get transplanted to wherever your family is, and that kind of feels like the end. Yeah.
So let's be very specific and transparent in the way that we made this decision. So you alluded to yours a little bit, but I know a big part of it for you was family. At the time you and I were dating, we were actually not yet engaged. Moved back to New Mexico, and I made the decision, yes, because you were coming here and we were dating, but I also had family here and I had Witchy.
Right.
So it was going to, I was going to do a little loan forgiveness so that I wouldn't have to pay another $130,000. So it was a financial, and I was how old were we at this
30?
point in time? 30. Yeah. Not even quite that. Gosh, I think I was 28, 29. You know, I didn't think about this at all.
No.
I don't think I thought one bit about it, actually.
Zero.
Certainly
and
wasn't
and I'm Hispanic, so I definitely didn't consider these things, meaning that
what does that mean?
It means that family is the only consideration for a decision. Like you go where your family is, right? I grew up on beans and chili. I am not worried about food quality. I'm like, where are my parents? That's what I'm going, where my parents are. So that's period, end of story.
Well, I was from a Christian homeschooled family. So family was pretty high one there too. And my family was here. So yeah, no, I think that was part of it is when you're younger, you very much know that you can move, right? At least earlier on, whether you're in college or post-grad program, whatever else it is, you very much feel like I'm going to get through this schooling and then I'm going to make another decision and I'm going to move somewhere different. And there's a lot of change at that time in your life, and you have very, very few responsibilities. So you can kind of pack up into a car and move.
Yeah, and you're also you usually have a jibby, not a career. So you're just like, I'll just get a new job, right? Like it's not
There's my jibby.
Yeah, you don't have to dismantle your career and reputation. You just get a new job.
Yes, that's correct. 100% correct, actually. Well, so we make this decision. We move to New Mexico, which is 49th or 50th in pretty much everything.
Yes.
So out of the 50 states, we're like 49th in crime.
No, we're like 1 in crime.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're number 1 in crime. Yeah,
right.
1 or 2 in crime.
Yeah, we're up
49th in education.
Yes. It's like us in Missouri that are constantly battling for that 50th spot.
Yes. Yeah. No, not Missouri.
Mississippi?
Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not good.
Right.
It's not good. We also have terrible everything, actually, like all of the rates, like teen pregnancies. We have horrible drug use here. I mean, Breaking Bad, everyone knows us for that. We were just in Canada. And when people heard that we were from New Mexico, those who heard us clearly that we didn't say Mexico, we said New Mexico, every Canadian we came across was like, oh, Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Yeah, we know Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
This is what we're known for.
Yes.
We're the 5th largest state, and we're known for meth.
Right. We're only one of 2 states that has an extra tax, gross receipts tax.
Which is almost 8%. And so just to put that in perspective, Devin and I basically write off about $500,000 every year
in gross
to the state
receipts
for gross receipts tax.
Right.
It's $500,000 in what could have been profit. That just goes to the state, which goes to nothing apparently, since it doesn't actually solve any of the problems that we just talked about.
We have several friends that live in Atlanta, and the conversations with those friends are really interesting because they have said several times, it sounds like we're not even living in the same country when you guys describe your state. And shout out to my friend Stephanie Donegan, who is running for state senate in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah, she sure is. She's
running for state senate in Georgia. And I'm bringing that up because one of the things that I asked her, she has a home in Italy. And I said, Georgia is completely different than here. I think they have it much better. And she is still pushing for change in her state. And I said, does it really matter? Why don't you just pick up and move to your home in Italy? And she said, because that would feel like giving up. This is my home. This is my son's home. And, God willing, my grandchildren's home too. And I want to do everything that I can to preserve that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I think that's a big piece of like, how do you make this decision? You really kind of have 2 choices, right? You're either going to move and go somewhere different, or you're going to make the place that you are in better, and or at least die trying. In New Mexico, I think it is important to note that we also are. There's some benefits that it doesn't sound like there's many when we just went through all those things.
Yeah, when we trauma dump on you.
Yeah. Most people would listen to that like laundry list, and there's a lot more of those things, actually. There's a lot more of just really bad things here.
We could keep going.
But I actually do love our state in this weird way. And I think that it's because I do see so much opportunity. And as a businessman and as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking for those things. And I look forward to the point of what Stephanie's doing. I have no intentions of going into politics. That's not something that I have ever had a feeling or a calling for. But I have really desired to make changes with business and with the types of the allocations of money and resources. We have a couple of friends, our neighbors actually, and both of them are just, they're both entrepreneurial in certain ways. But he's always telling us like how he wants to transform the North Valley, and he wants to make it walkable, and he wants people to be able to experience restaurants and to go from, kind of bar hop and have a nice glass of wine and then go over to a bookshop. And he has this vision for it. And when he talks to you about it, you're like, I think it's going to happen because he's that kind of person, right? But if he was poor and had not done to the point of what we were talking about last time, if he hadn't led himself in so many other ways, that wouldn't be possible, right? But he's really conditioned himself. He's a very disciplined person to be the kind of person who now will probably have the network and the finances to actually make something like that happen. So shout out to Ryan as well, and Alana, good peeps, right? What are the things around this topic? I mean, let's set the tone a little bit more. There's location. There's also the people that you're going to be around. Like you said, you're talking about the quality of people, the way that they think. That has a lot to do with politics. It does. It has a lot to do with education. Again, things that New Mexico, whether you're blue or red, we're not a very good state politically.
Right.
I think everyone would agree with that.
Right.
We don't make good decisions.
Well, I think some of the upsides is, we've talked about, is it the wrong decision or can you make the wrong decision right? And I think in a lot of ways we've really practiced that. So when things are not everywhere, right, where it's hard to find things, it also makes it easier for exceptional things to stick out.
Yeah.
You can find those people easier. So in this state, I think we have a really good network of friends because it's easy to pick out those people who are entrepreneurs that think like you, that educate their kids differently. Those people are easy to spot around here.
And I think there's a lot less people. So there are other things that are such positives. We have a lot of patients that move from Dallas and Austin and New York, Seattle, San Francisco, Bay Area, a ton. A lot of patients that have come to Santa Fe. And there are pockets like that are really cool. I mean, Santa Fe is a really cool city. And they come and one of the first things that they always say is like, oh my gosh, everyone is so friendly.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them like, well, have you been to Canada? Have you been to certain places? And they're like, no, you guys are way more friendly, more helpful, more all the things. To your point, you can pick out the people who are entrepreneurial and have vision very easily. And there's just not a lot of arrogance here. If you enjoyed this episode of the Dental and Mental Podcast and this topic resonated with you, we go so much deeper inside the Thrive Lab.
So if you too want to be copied but not replicated, come join us in the lab.
And just for you, because you listen to the podcast, if you want a full $1,200 off of the year-long subscription, just use coupon code podcast. See you then.
No, there's not.
I love that.
That's 100% true. So I think that makes it a real joy for collaboration because people who like high-level thinking but have no arrogance attached to it, it's really fun to collaborate with those people because you just want to build cool shit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we were talking to our friends in Atlanta. We were trying to tell them, like, you should come out. And after they heard all the things that made them think that you guys live in the same country as we do.
Right.
We started trying to sell a trip out here really hard. But part of the reason for that is another huge benefit of where we live, which is it is scenically gorgeous and very unique.
If you like that sort of thing.
Which I do. Which we do.
We is there a mouse in your pocket? I don't care about nature.
She doesn't, which is such a travesty because all of our kids do. They love nature. Your daughter never wants to leave the outdoors.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So if you like nature, we do have that. If you don't like nature, here I am.
Here you are. Yeah. Okay. So you have people who are, in particular, as dentists or business owners, you've set up your shop and it's very easy to feel trapped. What do you tell them?
Well, I would probably tell them the same thing that David Nagel told me, which is you're not a broccoli, which means that you have legs and intellect you can pick up and move. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not talking about dismantling everything, but there is a way of reworking your life so that you can still have the things that you want or need with some rearrangement.
Right.
Right? With some vision, with a family vision. So really asking yourself, what does it look like? So again, going back to our first podcast, it doesn't look like I've just got to fall in love with this place and I'm set to die here and there's no other option, or I've got to sell my practice and uproot our family and we have to move. It's like there is an option for reinvention. And so really asking that question, what does that look like? I think one of the blessings for us being in New Mexico is that because we are really sequestered, it has given us such an opportunity to pour ourselves into our business because we're not doing a lot of extra things.
Yeah.
And so we've gained a lot of depth and growth within our business due in part to some isolation here.
Oh, yeah.
And then when we decide that we don't want the isolation anymore, it starts looking like conversations of how do we arrange your Vita schedule? Mm-hmm. What does that look like, right? That part of that is the conversation of bringing in another associate, moving your days down. How much more do we want to travel? What do those trips look like? What do we want to incorporate? What are we missing here that we can fill with travel? And how do we structure that within our vision?
I do think that there is an internal freedom that comes with external constraints. We're remodeling our home. And when you remodel, there are confinements. There are constraints. There's things that you can't change, you can't move. And I find that a lot of creativity is sparked in that kind of environment versus a blank slate, you can do whatever you want. I like both, don't get me wrong. But I think to your point, there is something to be said for some of the restrictions that we have here, where it then is, okay, we're going to want to travel more. We're going to want to go international more. So that means I have to change my schedule at work. Well, I might not have to do that if I live somewhere else, but I do now. So now who do I have to become as a practitioner to set up my schedule so that I don't lose production? And so that I take care of my team and so that I take care of my partner. I have to become someone different. And that is actually a form of internal freedom because you get to grow as a human being. Your capacity increases, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really special thing about that. People don't think about that. Restrictions are not all bad. Some, by all means, if you can change them. But others, sometimes it's not worth the fight of trying to change that because it's trying to teach you something.
Absolutely. And I think that's where you get to unlock a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
Right? Because that problem solving and really thinking about this is a problem and I would like a solution. And so if there is a problem, there naturally has to be a solution to it. So I need to start thinking and getting creative about what does that actually look like? And that's when you start to reignite passion that maybe you've lost living in a certain area or doing things a certain way. You start to unlock, oh, but we could do it this way. Or if we move some pieces around the board, look what opens up.
Yeah.
And then you start to get that juice again, and that fuel will propel you into your next move.
Yeah, I think there's a danger. It's obviously very cliched. I say that the grass is always greener somewhere else, but there are people who live that way, where very much that's their mentality, that it's always better somewhere else. And I just officiated our really good friend's wedding, and it was a blast. But one of the things that I said in that, probably the rest of it was garbage, but this was hopefully decent.
It was great. The people, you got good. It was great. The people loved it.
One of the things that I said that I think is really important is that you need to learn to prioritize the roots over the flowers. And I think that applies to the situation where it's really easy to be like, man, Italy's so amazing. We've been there and Italy is incredible. And there's going to be things that when you live there for a year or 2 years or 3 years, wherever you are, that you're like, this is annoying. I don't like this. And they were flowers at first, but then they fade. And it's just like anything else in a relationship, in a business relationship, in a partnership, with patience, enough time with anyone in any place, and you will start to grow tired of certain things that are there every time. And those are the flowers that fade. So you have to prioritize the depth of the roots that you create anywhere you go. And we had a friend recently who's one of our really good friends. I'm actually doing a bunch of dentistry on him. He's reinventing his life, and he's such a passionate human being, and he loves this state. And he knows all of its problems. He knows them better than we do.
Yes.
He's very familiar with them. But he is such a committed, loyal New Mexican, and he wants to make this state not suck.
Yeah.
Right?
And he's put his money where his mouth is.
I'm going to say what I admire is he doesn't complain. He does the work. And to the degree that he has organized an event, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but this is super important. He organized an event, co-organized, that was very bold, and it was called Somos, still is. And in creating it, he and a couple of his friends that put this together, they had to put up a lot of their own money. And then they had to ask vendors to support this. And the idea was with Somos that, which means we are, right? It's this concept of like, we're New Mexican, come here. And they were trying to create this festival, essentially this like, almost like an EDM festival at first, right? And they wanted New Mexican companies to be there and for it to be this very much like support local, but bringing this awesome talent from out and about, right?
Yeah, this Somos, we have Chromio.
Chromio.
You guys do not know.
You know, I loved him when he had a toothbrush in his back pocket in that first music video. I was like,
you don't know how excited I am for Chromio.
It's gonna be so good. Yeah. So the very first one, they finished it all up, and they had debts to pay because it was this great idea, but they put their money where their mouth was, and they had to pay these vendors back, and they did. They ended up paying everybody back. But our paper wrote a hit piece on them and one of our big journals, trying to take them down essentially and badmouth them for not paying people on time or whatever else it was. And it's like, they're doing something exceptional. They're doing something that none of you had the balls to do. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt.
Right.
So I was like, be quiet. Like, take your journalist and go away, because they're doing something about the problem. They're trying to bring life back to this place that no one else is caring for. And year after year, they kept getting better and better and better. And now they had like Shaq come out like the last time.
Yeah.
They've had these great talents come, Chromie's coming. And to see it be successful and profitable now and all the rest, they just stayed committed. So a little tangent, but I love the depth of the roots that he was creating. And I mentioned him, not for that. I mentioned him because he wrote us the other day and he said, what about a little like dinner, this kind of special dinner idea with friends? And it's just these ideas of trying to make memories where you are.
Yeah.
And it was a great idea. And we all thought like, yeah, let's do it. Let's set that up and we'll do it once a month. And that will make the place you live. I think if you don't have people that you love and you care for where you live, you're not going to care where you live.
Yeah.
It is about the people.
I think that is really true. And so that, to the point of making a wrong decision right, and not even necessarily that it is a wrong decision, it is an opportunity to be able to create something where you are. And really starting to ask yourself, right, what does that look like? With him initiating this idea of this kind of like rotating dinner and bringing different chefs in and curating it, the excitement for living here and having really good friends is something that I was like so grateful for.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like, yes, I can complain that there's nothing but nature here. And then you're like, oh, but we're doing this little rotating chef's dinner. Like, this is great. I'm really excited for that. And then you start to wonder how many other opportunities are around you that you either miss or do not think about because you're focused on what you don't have.
Right. Right. Yeah. As business owners, as we kind of draw this podcast to an end, I think a lot of business owners really don't think about where they're setting up shop. And I do believe that while you can be successful, anywhere, you can't be successful everywhere. And there's something to be said for picking and choosing the location of where you're going to set up your practice. Devin and I practice in Santa Fe. We don't practice in rural New Mexico with a population of 500 people, right? Just by pure practicality, it would not be possible to have 2 high production dentists in an area that operates that way, that has that few of that little of a population. It just doesn't work.
It couldn't sustain it, right?
Our good friends in Atlanta, I was talking to him and we were just laughing because he's Egyptian. And he's like, everything's barter, everything's discount, everything's a trade. Like that's the business of the culture. And so when you and I are telling people like, don't discount your services, say your full fee, well, it's not going to work in certain areas.
Right.
Right. Like you have to know what it is that you want. And I think that's what you said in the beginning. Be very clear on what it is that you're trying to build. Be very clear on what the lifestyle is that you want to create, and then go find a place that supports that. And it may not tick all the boxes, but if it ticks enough of those boxes, then grow the roots and put in the time to make that space really special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing I really love what you brought up about growing the roots because to your point of grass is greener or romanticizing something else, I think we all have the experience of returning back to roots where you may not like it or it feels like it's entrapment. And then you go and do the grass is greener thing and you start longing for your roots.
Yeah.
You start romanticizing that, the comfort and the peace and the stability that it provided you, even at times if it was boredom and it felt like it was lacking, there is a return to that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really beautiful thing to remember too, is that we can take roots for granted. And then when things start to get tumultuous, you somehow find your way back to them.
And it's what allows you to weather those storms in real time. The previous podcast, we talked a lot about leadership and how it really means taking personal responsibility, making hard decisions, which are made in faith without the evidence, and actually creating the evidence. When you talk about location, when we talk about where you live, you think about places like Dubai, like just desert, and someone had a vision. And now people are like, I want to move there. It looks amazing. Well, they didn't just curate beauty, but there's a very real way that you like get into that country, and what is expected of you and all the rest.
Right.
And so there's a draw because of someone's vision and curation. And I think even when we go to Italy, you look at some of these buildings and it's like the person who thought that, who drew up the plans, right? They never saw it to completion. It didn't happen for 300 years, 400 years after they came up with the idea, like
they're still building that church in Spain.
They're still building the basilica, right? And it's like, okay,
that church is like 5,000 years old, still brick by brick to this day.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty close. It's like a year and a half away.
Says you.
Says
the
me.
people. I don't know.
But that is the kind of leadership we're talking about, And so it's don't build it just anywhere. But when you pick the place, you have to have the vision, not just for yourself, but for your immediate family and for your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids. You have to have that if you plan on truly leaving a legacy and making something memorable. It has to be there. And I think we've lost that art. I would even say that for myself. It's a lot harder because that was not taught to us. I don't think your parents taught you that. My parents didn't teach me that. Because it's been lost for a while. That's why American architecture sucks.
Yeah, and we're such a to-do list culture, right? What do I have to do today? It's not what am I building today that is going to be generational.
Right.
Right. It's just not a mindset that we have as Americans normally.
Yeah, that's why you and I moved into Mexico and it was like, okay, what's the next job? Well, this job pays me a little bit. I'll take that job. And what's the next one? What's the next one? There wasn't that thought of I'm going to build something that's going to take me 20 years, but it's going to be incredibly worth it in 20 years. It was very much like, what could pay me now? And you and I have since changed that way of thinking, but it took a lot of effort because it was not what came naturally to us.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it was good talking to you.
Good talking to you. Join us in part 3.
Yeah, part 3. Thank you for listening and or watching the Dental and Mental podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any others for that matter, feel free to tap that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as Spotify. While you're there, why not leave us a review? up to 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what topic you want us to discuss next.
If you like what you heard today and you want to be involved in the Thrive world, from coaching to courses or just to connect with us, go to thethrivedentist.com.